Hi everyone, a very warm welcome back to MEC-TEC. We're out on the drive today as it's a nice sunny day and we are working on this. Now this made a brief appearance on the channel around about Christmas time when we went and picked up the Ninja because I needed a car with a tow bar because obviously all mine were off the road. This is my mother-in-law's Ford Fusion, known as Freddie the Fusion, and it needs a couple of repairs doing to it. So as you can see, we're going to be doing a new exhaust, complete from the downpipe back. We've got a genuine full one. Back box and centre pipe. Now that was actually cheaper to get a genuine full one online than it was to go to Euro car parts and get a aftermarket one. So as far as I'm concerned, that's brilliant because the genuine full one's a hell of a lot better quality. So we've got that. We've also got Brembo discs and pads to put on the front. It has got a little bit of a brake judder from the front, so we're going to change the discs and pads out. Hopefully that will sort that out, and we'll probably give it a wash as well just to finish off the job nice. So without further ado, let's I'm going to get this turned round so I'm in the shade on that side. We'll get it jacked up, and I want to make sure before I start doing anything that these exhaust parts are the right ones, because obviously I've ordered them online, and although they said they were for this car, obviously I want to make sure before we start hacking the car apart. So let's get this flipped around, get it up in the air, and we'll have a look and see what we've got. Rightio, as you can see we are under the car now. It's lovely and clean under here actually, really nice condition. Look at those seals, absolutely perfect all the way down. No rust anywhere. Both sides are the same, all the way along. Anyway, I digress. Right, we've got the new exhaust laying underneath the car, as you can see there. Now there are a couple of differences that I've noticed straight away. Don't know why they've done this, but on the original, because this is the original exhaust from new on this car, you can see there's a flexi section up there. And the bolted on part is up the top in above that. You can't really see it very well because it's above the subframe, it's up here. The new one hasn't got a flexi part, it just goes solid all the way along. I don't know why they've changed that. It's still got the same bolted on flange at the end there, so it should just bolt on, it just won't have that flexi part. The next difference I can see is there's a hanger here on the original one with the rubber on it, and there isn't one on this because it doesn't need as much support, because obviously this is a solid pipe rather than it being flexi. But it does have a hanger on the exhaust there, which matches up with one on the car which isn't used on the original exhaust. You can see it there, but it's there, or I assume, for when the car gets older and you have to replace the exhaust for whatever reason. They've changed it so that it hangs there, so we just need to swap that rubber over to this hanger and hang it from there. So that bit's fairly all right. Now the problem comes at the back. Obviously the back box is the right one, and it's got an open-ended sort of flared end there, as you can see, with the two slits in it. But when you put the new section up to it, it's actually the same size, so it won't fit over the top, not without forcing it anyway. So I may have to either put two more slits in this to open it up a little bit further and see if we can get it over the top of that one. If we can't do that, then I may have to cut it slightly further back, get it on, and then weld the slits back up again. So that is going to be a bit of an issue. But the first thing we've got to do is actually cut the old back box off, because this is an original system. It's all in one piece. You can see there's no join. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to measure how far that back box comes along for now and cut it at that point, so that if I have any problems with this centre pipe, I can actually use the new back box on the original centre pipe. Obviously we want to try and see, the reason, sorry I didn't tell you, the reason we're replacing the exhaust is the back box is leaking. Let me see if I can get under there and show you. Hang on a second. There's a crusty bit there, and there's a hole further up the side of it in there. You can just about see the seam. Now that is a big hole in the seam there, so that is the reason we're changing it, because it's making a racket. It's not horrendous yet, but it's getting bad. So the back box definitely needs changing. The centre pipe we got, because it was so cheap, it was like 27 quid. And we thought, well, while we're there, we might as well change the whole system. I didn't know it was going to be different, unfortunately. So, yeah. So the first thing we're going to do is get the back box cut off, and then we can hopefully unbolt that centre section without too much grief, and offer the new one up and go from there. I'll come back to you in a minute. Rightio, as you would have seen from that bit of time lapse there, that is the back box off. As you can see, it is mullered all the way along that seam. Got a hole coming along the top there as well. This bracket's all bent up where it's look at that way that's flexing. That's actually pulled a hole in it there, look, as well. Pulled the bracket right off the front of it. So it was not long for this weld. In fact, there you go, it's come off completely. So yeah, that back box has had it. There's the new one. Obviously I'd cut it a bit further back to start with, just in case. We can now work at getting this centre section off and obviously go from there. And then obviously if we need to obviously modify the back of the new one to fit it, then we will. But yeah, we've got to take off this cross brace, which is just bolted on. You can see that's all one section wobbling around there now. So I'm going to get this off. This is held on by 8-10 mils by the looks of it. We'll buzz that off, and then we've got 2 bolts at the front and 1 rubber, and hopefully it shouldn't cause us too much grief getting it off. Let's carry on. Right, made an executive decision after checking with the mother-in-law, of course. We are going to leave the centre section on the car because there isn't actually anything wrong with it, and the new back box slides on absolutely perfect like it should do. So what I'm going to do is, just to protect this, I'm going to give this a wire brush down with the old wire wheel in the grinder there. Give it a good clean up. It's not got any holes in it, it's nice and thick. You can actually see where I cut it on the end. It's lovely and thick still as far as metal goes, so there's no rot in it really. It's only surface rust. So we're going to give it a proper clean up. We're going to give it a coat of high temperature silver paint to obviously hopefully try and prolong its life a bit more. And we're going to go with it because there's no point in changing it just for the sake of changing it. We can send the other bit back, we don't need it. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to give this a proper good clean up. Then I'm going to get the back box hung on the rubbers at the back, so that we can work out exactly where we need to cut that centre pipe, because obviously I've only cut it rough at the moment. I cut it further back, longer than it needs to be, so we can get that on there, mark it up properly, make sure my mark I put on there already is roughly around about right, cut it in the right place, and that should just slide straight over, clamp up, and it'll be jobs are good. And obviously this will be nice and painted silver, so it'll look something like a new exhaust would. But without all the ag of trying to change it for no apparent reason. So I'm going to get the grinder going, we'll get that done, I'll come back to you in a minute. Right, having given that a good wire brush and gone deaf in the process because of the grinder, you can actually see in places the pipe has actually gone shiny again, so it shows how good a condition it is, which is pretty amazing considering it's 18 years old. So I'm going to get some masking paper under here now and give this a coat of silver paint. Before I do that, I'm actually going to trim the end, so I'm going to get that hung on the back there, that back box on them 2 rubbers, and then we'll trim the end, make sure it's in the right position, and then we can get it painted. Come back to a minute. Rightio, as you can see there now, I've got the new back box hanging on the rubbers, and it's supported with a jack underneath that corner just to get it somewhere in the right position. And as you can see by that, I've marked with a gold pen there where it needs to be cut. Obviously that's where the larger expanded bit of tube is that it goes up to. So I'm going to cut that off on the centre section there. Obviously we'll do that with that reciprocating saw again, because that seemed to work really well. And once we've got that done, I can drop the exhaust back down again, get some masking paper above it, get it painted with some high temperature paint, and then we can get it put together. Lovely jubbly, let's carry on. Right, scratch the idea with the reciprocating saw. I'm going to go back to the old grinder. I can't get the reciprocating saw in there at the point that it needs to be cut because obviously the axle's in the way. So, and I can get the grinder in there, so I'm hoping I'm going to be able to do it with the grinder. It should be all good. So let's see how we get on. Rightio, as you would have seen, that is that end cut off nice and neat, nice and fairly straight as well, which I'm quite surprised about. I've given it a little file just to take any burrs off the edge so it slides inside the other bit alright. So now that actually drops down below the axle, because obviously it's a bit shorter, it allows me good access to paint the top of the pipe, which is handy. So I'm going to get that painted first, then I'll lift it up a bit, obviously do the underside. May not have to do as much masking as I would have had to have done if it was tied up to the car, so that's quite handy. And then we can go from there. Let's carry on. There we go, that is MEC-TEC Exhaust Refurbishment Limited. Looks brand new. Should do the job nicely, should keep it protected for a bit longer. And obviously because it's high heat paint, it won't hopefully burn off too quick. And the heat of the exhaust when I restart the car will hopefully cure it fairly quickly. So I'm going to try and get the new back box on there now with the get that on the rubbers, and that will hold this up in the air where it's supposed to be. And then any bits I've missed I can then go along with the paint can and just dust them over as and when sort of thing. So that should be good, and then obviously hopefully we can get it started, make sure there's no leaks, and hopefully we'll have a decent exhaust again. Lovely jubbly. Right, before we put this together I'm going to use a bit of this, the old gum gun exhaust fire gum paste stuff made by Holt's. It's my granddad's surname, Holt. There you go, bit of trivia for you. Anyway, let's get a bit of this put around the end of this pipe, and obviously that will aid in when the two slide together, sealing the join nicely. Not technically always necessary, but obviously this being a now we're using the original centre pipe, it has got obviously a few little dimples in it where the rust pits were. So if you're unsure, you might as well just put some on, because it's not going to hurt it, and hopefully it will give it a nice seal. Now chances are a lot of this is going to get smeared out as it slides on, but hopefully not too much. And also, one other thing I've learned over the years is when you do the exhaust clamp up, you don't want to do it up like mega tight, because otherwise it ends up crushing the pipe and it makes it go over and then it doesn't seal. So you only want to really nip it so that it's just tight enough. I mean, obviously you want it tight, but not stupid tight. Right, that should be enough of that on there. I'm going to get this slid on, and then I'm going to get the back box in the hangers, and then I can go and find the clamp, because that's in the garage somewhere, and I can get it clamped up hopefully. Hopefully that should just slide on. All the goo will do its thing. Obviously when you hang it on the rubbers, you want to make sure they are hanging as vertical as possible, so you don't want any tension on them as far as forward or back on the car. Otherwise it will make them fail prematurely. actually. Sometimes a bit of WD-40 helps on the rubbers. Problem is I've not got enough hands to get it. So I'm going to have to do it how we're doing it. Where is it? There's the camera, WD-40. Give it a little spray of WD in the end of the rubber. Just allows it to slide on a bit easier. Should just pop on there now, hopefully. Any luck. There you go, just like that. That's that one on. Get the back one on. There we go, back one is on. So now we've got to rotate that pipe so that it's sitting level like that, and then do the clamp up there, so obviously it holds it in the correct position. So I'm going to go and find the clamp, we'll come back to you in a second. Right, we've got a genuine Ford clamp to go on there. Not that it makes much difference, but they do tend to be quite a lot thicker than the aftermarket ones, and a bit better quality, and they've got nice lock nuts on them so they won't back off. Whereas the normal ones that you buy from wherever, they've just got normal nuts on, and they just tend to have a tendency to undo themselves sometimes, so I've found anyway. So we've not got a lot of clearance at the top here. Usually I wouldn't have the bolt heads hanging down, but because there's not a lot of clearance, I don't want it vibrating or anything, so I'm going to put it slightly on a wonk like that. And that should hopefully do the trick. Get the nut started again. Because it's a lock nut, you only get it on, can only get it on so far before it goes tight, so then you have to get a socket on it. I'm going to go and grab, I think that's a 13mm socket. I'm going to go and grab that, I'll come back to you and we'll get it tightened up, and then we'll start it up and see what it sounds like. See you in a minute. Right, that was an absolute pain, mainly because the nut on this side, it felt like it was stripping it off the thread, so I backed it right off again, took it off. It seems to have gone all right now. That side was very tight. Now these nuts, as I said, are like pinch nuts, so they won't come undone. They're like a nylock but without the nylon, because obviously the heat would melt the nylon. So that is why they're like that, and that is why they're extra tight going on. But that right hand side one was even tighter than I think it should have been. So, and you would have noticed as well, I just used a big pair of grips and I've just squeezed the end of this pipe because it wasn't quite tight around this side. So it's all tight now. I'm going to start the car up and we'll see what it sounds like. With that, you can hear it very slightly leaking around there. Because of that clamp being a pain to do up, it looks like I'm going to have to redo that because this is obviously jiggled about far too much. This shaping it slightly this side, so I'm going to take that off and have another go. Let's see if we can get it better. Come back to you in a minute. I've just undone the clamp, as you can see there, and that is completely sealed up. So it was actually the clamp, exactly what I said not to do in the beginning of the video, was do it up too tight. Now obviously I've done that up too tight, so I'm going to maybe move the position of it slightly. Don't want it to bang, you see, so I'll move the position of it slightly. We'll just nip it up and see what happens, and then go from there. Rightio, having played around with that clamp a couple of times to get it in the right position, it is now sealed. However, I do seem to have a rattle coming from the centre section of the exhaust since we've bolted it back together. Don't know why. I've just started up so you can hear what I mean. Something rattling in the centre section. Having said that, I can't actually hear it now, so not sure where it's gone. It may be because the car is jacked up on one side, and obviously it's not sitting there, it would normally sit. But it may be something we have to revisit with that other centre section in the future if it does carry on rattling, because it was really annoying. It's not actually doing it now, which is strange. Strange but good at the same time. So we're going to leave that as it is. That's all bolted up nice, all painted. There's no leaks from the back there, and obviously it sounds good. So we're going to start on the brakes now. I'm going to get this front wheel off. We're going to do discs and pads on the front. I'll come back to you in a minute. Rightio, with the wheel now off, you can see obviously the caliper and the disc. Now looking at it, this has actually got loads of meat left on the pads, but unfortunately the discs haven't been changed at the same time as the pads have been changed, and they've got quite a big lip on the edge of them, and they are really sort of uneven and grooved. So we are going to change them, even though the pads have got a lot of life left in them. Obviously you can't do new discs without doing new pads as well. So on the back here I've just took these two caps off. In there are the two slide pins. They seem to be a 45mm Torx, so I'm just going to see if they'll undo. That's it. So you've got two 45mm Torx. Now if you were just doing the pads, all you would have to do is undo these two, and then obviously the caliper would slide off the carrier. Now because we're going to be doing the disc as well, we will need to take the carrier off as well, which is just literally two 13mm nuts. So there's one of your sliders out. Can't get the Torx bit out of the thing. Hang on a second. Give it a little tap. I'm assuming that's because it's probably an Allen key head rather than a Torx bit, but I didn't have a Torx the right size, an Allen key the right size. If you get it stuck like that, if you wind it back in the other way, and just very gently, when it gets to the point where it goes in and stops, see it comes straight out. So if you just do it really gently, because obviously now it's been undone once, it shouldn't take so much pressure to come out. So now when you take it out, that should come straight out. And when we get this out, I'll obviously have a look and see what it should be rather than what I'm using, because obviously it's not Torx bit. Let's have a look. Yeah, it is an Allen headed thing. I mean, the Torx bit does fit, no problem, but it does get a bit stuck. So I don't appear to have the right size. It looks like it would be a 7mm Allen headed socket if you've got one. Mine set jumps from 6 to 8, so I haven't got one, so the Torx bit will have to do the job. It does work, so as long as it doesn't get permanently stuck in there, then we should be alright. Now that one was quite tight, so if you just go the other way quickly, break the seal of it, so when you undo it this time, that should come straight out the end of the socket. Pull, there you go, and it should pull off. There we go, so that's all right. So those two sliders, obviously give those a good clean up when you take them out, because they should be nice and shiny so that the caliper slides easier. That should allow the, actually no, tell a lie, you've got your spring clip on the front here which you need to pop off because that's holding tension on the pads at the moment. Just get a little flat bladed screwdriver in there, pop it out both sides like that. Now that should allow that to just slide off like that. And there's your pads with loads of meat left on them, typical on it. And the pads and discs on this are a lot easier to do than what they were on my cab, because obviously on the cab you had to take the whole hub off to get the disc off, whereas on a modern car like this one you don't. So take the pads out of there. Now literally all that is holding the disc on now is the carrier, because, well, I say that, from new this car would have had like a lock ring washer that goes on there that you just push on and it holds it on, and obviously when you bolt the wheel up it holds it tight. I dare say these have been changed before, or they will have done, so the lock washer has obviously gone missing, so all that holds it on basically is the wheel. So you undo these two 30mm bolts like that. Got one there and one there. And that should come loose. See all the brake dust and crud dropping out the bottom of it. Now obviously these areas here, this groove, this groove, this groove and this groove, you want to be cleaning those up with a wire brush and giving them a little bit of copper grease so that the pads slide nice and easy in them. And also another thing to check, when you put your new pads in, check these little wings and make sure when the pads have been made that they've not got any like bumps in the casting, because sometimes that can catch on these grooves and make the pads bind up. That's only what I've had from previous experience. There we go, just those two 30mm off, carriers off. I'm going to give it a good old clean up with a wire brush, as I just said, copper grease in both of them grooves, in there and in there, and that's that. And then now that's off, there's your disc, easy as anything. So it's a bit like the old C1 actually, that came off the same way. You can see these are very rusty on the edges and on the back there as well, so we'll overdue a change. So what we'll do now we've got that off, we'll give this hub a nice clean up. It's not too bad, but we'll just give it a little wire brush up, make sure there's no rough bits on it so that the new disc sits on there nice and flat. Sometimes a little smear of copper grease on there doesn't go amiss either, because it stops the disc from sticking when you come to change it next time round. So yeah, I'll get those bits cleaned up. I'll get the caliper cleaned up as well. Just a little quick wire brush in there, get all the crud out of it, squeeze this piston back. Now before you squeeze the piston back, make sure you take the cap off of your brake reservoir, otherwise the fluid has got nowhere to go, and obviously then it starts causing issues. So take the cap off your fluid reservoir under the bonnet, then you can squeeze these in, and then that should be top banana, lovely jubbly and all the rest of it. Right, I'll come back to you in a minute when I've done a bit of cleaning up. Rightio, as you would have seen that bit of time lapse there, I've now got the pads, or should I say the carrier, cleaned with copper grease, the pads put in with copper grease on the back. Now that's not technically needed anymore, because these have actually got sound pads on the back of these pads. They're Brembo pads, just show you now, I've actually got a sound anti-squeal pad on the back, but through force of habit I do it anyway, so it's up to you whether you want to do the copper grease on the back of the pads or not as well. It's personal preference really. So that is all back on there now. Just trying to knock that home so that it goes in all right. So the next thing now is we're going to clean up the 2 slider pins. Use that one now, and I've lost the other one. Where's the other one gone? Somewhere around here. But basically I'm just going to clean up with a little bit of WD-40. Actually no, we'll probably use a little bit of brake cleaner, thinking about it, as I've got a little pot of brake cleaner here. I'll give them a little clean up with that, and maybe put a little bit of I usually put a little bit of 3-in-1 oil on these, if anything, because WD-40 tends to evaporate or run away, whereas 3-in-1 oil is a little bit thicker. It does lubricate them quite well. Now I don't know what that does for the rubber part of the caliper where it slides into, whether it damages the rubber or not, I've got no idea. In fact, I have just thought I've got a little bit of red silicone grease I found in the garage the other day, so I might put a little bit of that on there. Let me go and grab that, I'll come back to you. Right, just de-soaking in this pot of brake cleaner for a couple of minutes, not long. Give them a little wipe over, and I actually found this little sachet of red rubber grease in the garage, so I figure as it's going into a rubber boot, that will do the job. So not sure what this came with. Maybe it came with one of the braking kits I got for the Westfield or something, and didn't end up using it on there for whatever reason, don't know why. Let's put a little smear of that on there, don't want too much, otherwise it would make it go sticky if you put too much on. A bit of that in there, slide him in like that. Same in the other one, and on a little bit, not too much, thin layer like that. Put him in the bottom one like that. And where is the socket gone? Why is it when you put something down right next to you, it literally vanishes into thin air? There it is, right in front of me. Right, so I need it then. Hopefully that'll be going in the right place. There it goes. Do the other one before I nick that one up. Get them both started so they've got a little bit of movement in them. Sometimes helps if they're not quite in line. Nick that one up like that. There we go. Get to put the 2 rubber caps back in the back, plastic caps back in the back of the rubber, I should say, like that. Keep some moisture out of there. And then the last thing to put back on is your spring on the front, which is that thing there. Give it a little quick wire brush over just to get any stuff off of it. Yeah. Right. Give that clean. And then if you get, as you find, if you get one in, not the bottom one in, like that, and then you can get a screwdriver in and sort of stretch it into itself to the top. It can be tricky. Sometimes if you get it in the hole slightly, only just in, just so it's sort of fractionally in there. What am I looking for? Improvised hammer. Yeah, if you get it in just slightly, then you can sort of stretch it over the edge, if that makes sense. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. No, that didn't work. Sometimes it works easier than others if you get one end in first or whatever. for whatever reason, don't know why. So close. Sometimes I wish you had a hammer next to you, but I haven't got one next to me. If I had a hammer next to me, I could just give it a little tap and it'd go in. Come on. There you go. Just like that. Try and make me look stupid on camera, will you? Little spring. I don't think so. So that is it. Now obviously you saw me in the time lapse wipe these discs over with some brake clean. Some of the new discs now have got a coating on them, so I don't need that, like the ones I put on the C1. These Brembos unfortunately haven't got the coating on, so just bear that in mind that you will need to clean these ones because they have a packing oil on them to stop them going rusty in the box, and you don't want that all over your new brake pads. So, and obviously make sure, rotate them around, make sure there's no grease all over them anywhere, because obviously I've put copper grease on that carrier and I probably did hit the disc slightly, so it won't hurt if you just give it a little bit of a bit of brake clean, knock it off and give it a little bit of a wipe over again. Can never be too clean. You'll be thankful for that when you're going down the road at 60 miles an hour and then you push your pedal and nothing happens. So make sure you do it. Not that I'm speaking from experience, but I don't fancy experiencing it either. So, right, so that is that side done. Now also, don't forget, once you've done both sides, get in and push the pedal back down again. Because you don't want to end up driving down the road thinking, oh, I've got new brakes, hit the pedal and nothing happens because you haven't pumped the pressure back down and pumped the pistons back out so it meets the disc. So I'm going to get this all done on the other side, and then we should be jobs are good, and hopefully let's carry on. Right, as you would have seen that bit of time lapse there, that is the second side done. Now one thing I forgot to mention on the other side is copper grease the front of the disc on the hub area behind the wheel before you put the wheel in. As you would have seen in the time lapse, I forgot to do that almost on this side. It just stops the alloy wheel, or any wheel in fact, sticking to the brake disc should you have a puncture at the side of the road or whatever and you've got to get the wheel off. The last thing you want when it's pouring down the rain is the wheel to be stuck onto the disc, so a little bit of copper grease stops that from happening. So that is job done. What a long day. that is going to be it for this episode of MEC-TEC. As you can see, Freddie the Fusion has had a nice little wash. Only a very quick wash admittedly, but it had bird mess all over it, so we got all that off at least so it won't stain the paint. That is good. Pads and discs are done on the front. Pretty straightforward job on one of these, so that was really good. The exhaust is a semi-success at the moment, I'm going to say, because obviously it's cured the blowing at the back box, but it has generated a rattle, or it had a rattle in the centre section which you couldn't hear because of the back box, and now you can hear it. So we may still have to put that centre section on yet, I don't know. We'll obviously, only time will tell on that one, whether it's just one of those random things that goes away or whether it actually wants doing as well. So that is down to my mother-in-law Lynn to decide on that one, whether she wants me to change it or not. So you may see it again. We may have to do that job again, but with new bits in the middle as well, like we was going to do in the first place. So we'll see. Anyway, I'm rattling on. If you do like what you see, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button down there and ring the little notification bell. That'll tell you every time I upload a video. I have also got Instagram, MEC_TEC1985, and I have got Facebook, MEC-TEC, for little sneak peeks during the week of what I'm up to. And all that is left for me to say is thank you very much for watching, and if you want to join me soon for more automotive adventures, I'll see you again next time. Cheers guys.